It is a Friday afternoon. Welcome in. A football Friday. Hope you're having a great day so far. Getting you ready for a night of high school football, a weekend of college football. We can say that now. We have a Saturday with college football in it, Gerhard.
We certainly do. Jacksonville State, Alabama State, both in action. The music that got us into it, into this segment here, the Thunderstruck. That reminds me of Varsity Blues, and it's one of the first football movies I remember watching. And so, yeah, just when you had that intro, I was like, you know what, we're here in football. I know we had we had some games last week in high school. We'll have some games this week in college, kind of mirroring each other. Like the week 0 games last week in high school mirror the week 0 games this week in college, and it's here. It's officially here. We've talked about it for a long time, but we're ready to snap it off.
Yes, and week 0 for college football. Jacksonville State in action.
Yeah.
They will get going tomorrow afternoon against Stephen F. Austin down in Montgomery. You'll hear that game right here on Fox Sports 102.9. 1:30 airtime, 2:30 kickoff. Jacksonville State and Stephen F. Austin. We had high school football on the air last night. If you listen, had some technical difficulties. We're on most of the game, though. Hope you enjoyed that. Tough loss for Hoax Bluff to Southside there, 42-7. And made some mistakes. Hoax Bluff did towards the end of that one, and Southside was able to get the win there at Mike Robertson Stadium. We'll talk some high school football a little bit later on. We've got a lot to get to today. 1 hour show here on this Football Friday, and we're going to head out and get ready for some football, and you'll hear some great football programming tonight, including game night coming up at 5:30. Jeff Allen and Jeff Milwee will be along for game night. We'll have high school football scoreboard tonight from 9 to midnight. So be listening and ready to listen in for all the scores. And then tomorrow morning, we got the college kickoff show, Gerhard, that will be coming your way as we'll take the Saturday morning from 9 to 10 and preview some college football.
Yeah, really excited about that one. That's going to be really fun because, this year in college football altogether, we have a lot of unanswered questions. We know a lot. There's some things that we know for sure, and a lot that we don't know, and we explore kind of both of those in the show. We will, and it's just, to me, I think it's going to be just a phenomenal season overall. We get the precursor coming up this weekend in college football.
So we start out today with breaking news. We had the show set up just like we like it, and then some news dropped in the last hour from out of Auburn, and that is that Auburn and athletic director Alan Green will be parting ways. The university has announced we kind of thought this may be a possibility. There was rumblings back in the early part of the year that this could happen. It is happening. His last day on campus will be this Wednesday, August the 31st. And, he was hired back in 2018 from Buffalo. He's done a lot of good at Auburn. But then you have to think where he's at. He's at Auburn. And
right.
It's a tough job working in that athletic department.
It certainly is. And this is a culmination of a lot of things all kind of coming together at once, because we had at Auburn a situation where it was really seems to be becoming untenable. Here's the big picture view of it. Obviously, at the beginning of his tenure, he was hired in 2018. Soon after, they have to fire Gus Malzahn with a very hefty price tag. They look for a coach. At the same time, other schools are looking for coaches. And it took Auburn a lot longer to find their guy. He goes right back to Buffalo, hires Brian Harsin. And then this past offseason, there's an internal inquiry into Brian Harsin. They come up with nothing at the internal investigation. It's a not a good look for Auburn altogether. Then you have Alan Green, whose contract is coming up. Reportedly, what happened is that Green started to see the writing on the walls, and possibly started, according to reports, interviewing for other AD jobs, understanding that he might not be kept. And so it looks like they're trying to make it an amicable split between the two, finalizing negotiations to end his tenure there with the Tigers. But if you look at some of the things that the athletic program has done under his leadership, well, you see a lot of success across the board. You see the fact that Auburn's made a couple of College World Series championships in baseball, made the Final Four, won a couple of SEC championships in men's basketball. The gymnastics team went to the NCAA championships. They signed the gold medalist in Suni Lee. They have a facility, $92 million football facility coming up. So from an athletic standpoint, it seems like the AD did his job, but I think it's everything behind the scenes, as is the case usually with the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah. You know, the first thing that came to my mind that I'm wondering now is just because athletic directors talk, coaches talk.
Yeah.
What's the level of interest going to be in this job, do you think? I mean, they've made it really hard for Alan Green to do his job. They've caused a lot of problems. Are people going to want to come to Auburn and be the athletic director?
I think there's 2 phone numbers ADs will call. And I think this job is becoming more and more radioactive every job search. If they just call up Jay Jacobs and they call up Alan Green, you'll get you'll get paid very well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you will have great athletic programs led by really good coaches. I mean, you can say what you want to outside of football, but, you can't really question men's basketball. You can't question gymnastics. You can't question baseball.
Yeah.
And so you have great programs overall, some good coaches. However, it's the people that you don't see usually behind the scenes that I think make this job a lot more difficult. With that being the case, I think it's going to be the same thing as the Auburn football coaching search. How hard it was to get a football coach to be as interested in this job as the Auburn program should be. As far as when the LSU job came open, it was immediately marquee, one of the top jobs in the country. When the Miami job came open, they've been irrelevant for almost 20 years. That job immediately became one of the top jobs. USC has been irrelevant for the last 10 years. That job immediately becomes the number one. You get the best guy. I don't think Auburn is getting the best guy anymore, and I think it's largely because of the Auburn people, not the fans. I'm talking about the people behind the scenes there in the administration.
And you think about when an athletic director comes in, a lot of times he wants his own people.
Right.
He wants his own coaches.
Yeah.
Is that bad news for Harsin? I kind of think it may be kind of bad news.
Yeah, I don't think that this is good news for Brian Harsin, especially if they do what most I would say, quote unquote, experts believe that Auburn should be. Auburn, in a lot of experts' minds, will be in this realm of anywhere between 5 wins and 7 wins, possibly an 8th win.
Yeah.
That is not going to be enough for a new AD to hitch his wagon onto Brian Harsin, especially after everything that happened this offseason. Because you had the inquiry that came out, and a lot of people say that inquiry was solely because Auburn was looking for a reason to fire Brian Harsin with cause. That way they don't have to pay the rest of his contract. That's just the word around Auburn. That's the smoke. Now, whether there's fire or not, we don't know. But the word was that's the reason why this whole investigation got started. We saw all the salacious rumors on Twitter and everywhere else. But we're now in a position where I think that this Auburn job is becoming almost self-defeating. And not to mention that the job is just hard just in general. I'm talking football now.
Right.
That job is hard being in the SEC West. You compound that on top of everything else that has to go with it. I think if you call Jay Jacobs and you call Alan Green, you don't get the most rosy picture about sitting in that office will be like for the next 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah. This is going to be really interesting to follow of what happens next. Again, Marcy Girton has been named the acting athletic director. He'll take over the duties as Alan Green exits until they hire another one. But interesting news out of Auburn today as Alan Green and Auburn are parting ways.
I will say this, though. It does seem, as messy as these things can be, it does seem that Auburn is trying to handle this one the right way, trying to have an amicable split here with their athletic director. These things can get ugly. These things can get, really, muddy and messy. I expect both parties to at least publicly have a pretty decent splitting, at least as it relates to the public eye, because Green's contract was already up, and it looks like that Auburn just was not going to renew the contract. It doesn't seem from the outside looking in. We all know what's happening, but it doesn't seem like, he has a year or two left in his deal, he's getting fired. We're not renewing the contract. And I wonder if the same thing will happen with Harsin, or if the new AD will, like what he sees and then wants to go at it. If you're just basing it based on prior, how these things happen, beforehand, usually new ADs want their own guy.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens in Auburn. Alan Green is, as of Wednesday, will no longer be the athletic director there for the Auburn Tigers. Very interesting news dropping today, and we'll see what happens down on the Plains. They open up with Mercer next Saturday there down on the Plains. We'll talk plenty more college football coming up. We'll dive into some high school football, Braves baseball. They get ready for a series with the Cardinals this weekend. We'll jump into that coming up next. Stick around. It is WKXX Live here on Fox Sports 102.9.
Being an
We are back here on WKXX Live here on this Friday, Football Friday, 1 hour show today. Chase Robinson, Gerhard, Mathangani here with you. Our phone number, 256-413-1029. That is 256-413-1029. If you'd like to call in and be a part of the show, I'd love to hear from you. We got Braves baseball this weekend and a big series with the St. Louis Cardinals. Because of high school football tonight, college football tomorrow, you'll hear the Braves on Sunday here on WKXX. But they're closing out the 6-game road trip with 3 there at St. Louis, who is, they're having a good season. Sitting first place in the NL Central, 72-53 record. I think this is a winnable series for the Braves, but I think they're gonna have this isn't gonna be one that's just given to them. They're gonna have to come ready to play.
Not at all. I mean, this is a really good St. Louis Cardinals team, and you wouldn't have said that about 8 weeks ago. This is a team that about 8 weeks ago they were hovering about 500 at 50-44. They've really turned it on since the All-Star break. They're 22-9 since the All-Star break, and they've won 8 of their last 10. They've been phenomenal. And you think about it, like they look a lot like the Atlanta Braves. They're really solid top to bottom. They have one incredible player. Paul Goldschmidt he's probably having the best season overall.
Yeah.
Having the best season overall of any player playing baseball on the planet right now. He's one of the leaders to win the MVP award, and he's in the hunt for the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
And so you have him playing really well. Their pitching staff has done really well as well. Quintana's on the mound today against Spencer Strider. But to me, this is a Cardinals team that I think provides a really strong challenge to the Braves, just like the Braves are doing right now with the Mets, where they're trying to chase that top team and overtake them. The Cardinals were here about 5 weeks ago. They were chasing the Brewers, and they finally caught them, and they were able to overtop them. How ironic would it be if the Braves were able to win 3, maybe the Mets stumble a little bit, and then the Braves, pick up the lead in the series here over a team that's first place right now in their division. To me, this is a really good series, I think, for both teams. These are both playoff teams, both teams I think that can win the National League as well. Yeah,
Spencer Strider on the mound tonight. Then tomorrow you'll have Charlie Morton, then Odorizzi on Sunday. So I think Strider's really good to start out in this series. Again, Cardinals are a good hitting team. Strider has been good against hot teams, so hopefully he can keep that going tonight. But I think he's good to kind of get things going tonight in this series.
Yeah, likewise. I think we have a really strong matchup there as far as the pitchers that the Braves will roll out these next 3 days against the players from St. Louis, and if Vegas is any indication, the Braves are a favorite going into this matchup, today's matchup, most certainly. And a lot of that is because of what Spencer Strider has been able to do to really hot bats. You think about what he did to the New York Mets. You think about what he did a little bit earlier in the year in their hot run in June, and what they were able to do in these past maybe 3 weeks or so. He's a good guy to get it all started over there as they play in a really tough baseball facility. It's going to be tough no matter what to play in St. Louis. But you bring the team that's one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, the Atlanta Braves, into that environment. That's going to be one of the hardest places to play. And Spencer Strider, I think, is a good person, I think, to throw out there game 1 of the series.
The young guys for the Braves, and we've talked about them multiple times. I don't know where the Braves would be right now if it wasn't for these 21-year-old guys who are coming into the big leagues and just having a day.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, we talked about guys like Kyle Wright, which he's a little bit older because he went to college. He's like 25, 26. But Spencer Strider is a great one. Then you have Michael Harris, who they just gave, big money contract to. And then you also have Von Grissom, who's been incredible. He jumped out on the scene at Fenway Park, hit a home run in his first big league at bat against one of the better teams historically in the American League in the Boston Red Sox. Kind of came on the scene then, and then you thought, if it's a flash in the pan, you can kind of get it because it's a young guy who had a hot streak or had a hot day. Like, it's not been that at all.
Yeah.
He's been a professional. He's been in the big leagues for about 17 days now, and he has stayed hot the entire time. And I think there's a lot that goes into that, both physically. Shows that he's physically ready to play big league baseball, but at the same time, I think more importantly, he's mentally ready to play big league baseball.
Absolutely. Here is Von Grissom talking about kind of how he started this season and how it is playing in Major League Baseball.
We're figuring it out still, trying to figure out how they're pitching to me now. But Dansby and all these guys, like I said, they've made it really easy on me. So there's not much I have to do more, like extra versus what I was doing. But yeah, like figuring out the routine and stuff, that's kind of had the same routine for a while now. So it's, like I said, it's just kind of finding the timing here in the big leagues. Just everything's a little bit different, just a little bit. But yeah, I'm getting comfortable, real comfortable, and hopefully we get to chill for a while. We get a lot of information on all the pitchers and stuff, but I think it's easiest to just like simplify it. I feel like every single pitcher in this league has a fastball, slider, and a couple of them have the changeup too. So like, just realizing that they're literally all the same. Like I call them stock. Like me and Sites, I would say, like, oh, stock righty today. So just trying to move around with that. Obviously, there's some guys that are a little bit better, but for the most part, like I said, they all got fastball and a slider. So it's like to psych yourself up because the ride or anything like that is just like kind of extra, and like it's just extra stress you don't need.
That was Vaughn Grissom there. Talking about, adjusting to the big leagues and his hot start. And he mentioned, the guys around him making that adjustment easy for him.
Yeah, and this is one of the things I'm a little refreshed to hear with the Braves, because when Freddie Freeman left, the one thing that you thought might be the void, on-field production is one, but I think Matt Olson has really filled in nicely in that role. But secondly, it was that clubhouse guy, the guy that in the clubhouse that can help galvanize a team. You go on a little bit of a losing streak. You lose 6 of 10, 7 of 10. You lose 3 or 4 straight, couple series. That's when those leaders are supposed to step up. It feels like the Braves have always had that on the field, but then you hear the young guy talk about it. Apparently, they're getting off the field as well. And he mentioned Dansby Swanson by name, but also Olson, also Austin Riley, kind of helping those young guys. And I think that's a direct correlation from the management, the leadership. I think the skipper, Brian Snicker, has done a really fantastic job to me talking to the veteran guys to help kind of groom those younger guys. And I think that's the reason why those younger guys are producing consistently. And whether it's pitching with Strider, Kyle Wright, and those guys, or it's on the offensive side with Harris and Vaughn Grissom and the other guys that are doing well from a young guy's perspective, I think they're getting it everywhere. And that's the reason why they're performing at the level they are.
I think one name is key in that. That's Dansby Swanson.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned him being a leader, helping him. Dansby Swanson is in a contract year.
Yep.
And he's made it clear that he wants to stay in Atlanta. I'm wondering what kind of contract it's going to take to do that. Because keep in mind, the same representation that formerly represented Freddie Freeman.
Right.
Make that clear.
Yeah.
Represents Dansby Swanson. And Freddie is not in Atlanta anymore. He also wanted to stay in Atlanta. I'm wondering what's going to happen with Dansby Swanson. I mean, I think he's a big piece to the puzzle that the Braves have right now. I want to see him stay in a Braves uniform, but at this point, I'm really not sure.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting scenario because, like you mentioned, it's the same representation. And if you read kind of between the lines, what happened with the Freddie Freeman deal is that the representation wasn't necessarily honest about what the Braves were doing. And I don't know if that's just to get more. He might have been doing it out of the goodness of his heart, the representation that represented Freddie Freeman, to try to get him the biggest and best deal. I think Freddie, and we saw it when the Dodgers came to Atlanta, he was filled with emotion. I think deep down in his heart of hearts, Freddie wanted to stay. Now, of course, he's going to chase a World Series, so it's not like he went, to the Pittsburgh Pirates on a huge contract. He's now with a team that can contend. I think this time the representation has to be very, very, maybe almost too open with their contract negotiations and telling client Dansby and telling Braves management exactly what they want and finding somewhere in the middle. Now, you have to look at some contracts of guys that are about his age, that sign big deals, that sign long-term deals, I should say, that have his level of production. There's a great article on Fansided. They take Dansby Swanson and they kind of compare him to players at his position, around his position, about his age. He's entering age 29, Dansby Swanson is. Take a look at a guy like Corey Seager, signed a 10-year deal, $325 million at age 29. Javier Baez from the Cubs with the Detroit Tigers and Trevor Story both signed 6-year deals. And so it's not a 10-year, $325. It's a 6-year deal worth 140 million. And so I think Swanson can get around that lower range. They say in the article that he's not going to get Corey Seager money, that he's not going to get that 10-year deal worth $325 million. Braves just don't do that. And honestly, I think it's smart for the Braves and any Major League Baseball team to get away from those huge $300 million deals. But I do think that he can get in that range where it's about $140-150 million. And if the Braves want to cut that check, they can. This is not a salary cap sport. If the Braves want to be about it, this is the time to show they are. They did it with Matt Olson.
Yeah.
Can they do it? And they did it with Michael Harris. They gave him that, I think it's 8 years, 72. Can they do it now again with another, big time guy entering? Actually, he's not even entering. He's right in the middle of his prime right now.
Yeah.
And he's playing really good baseball.
He really is. I think this is going to be key for the Braves in the next couple of months. Before I would like to see him sign a contract before the season's over.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Braves fans do. I think he wants to. He's on a 1-year deal worth $10 million right now. I think Swanson wants to be a Brave so much that he'd be willing to wait it out at the end of the year. But I mean, for me, and I think for a lot of people, the sooner the better on this. You've already signed up Michael Harris, so you've got Harris, you've got Acuna, you've got the core, you got Riley. Riley also signed a contract extension this year. So the Braves have been handing out money this year.
Yeah. Can
they do it? Can they do it one more time and solidify both your infield and your outfield? And your pitching staff's already in good shape right now. So they have a really good chance to solidify a team that can win for a very, very long time.
Yeah, you're right about that. We'll see what the Braves do, what they can drum up with Dansby. I want to see him stay in a Braves uniform. We'll see if that happens. Again, Braves-Cardinals begins tonight. Got Strider on the mound, Morton on the mounds tomorrow, and then Odorizzi on the mound on Sunday. Their Braves-Cardinals. Big series. We'll see if they can come out game and a half behind the Mets. We'll see what happens. We'll get into some college football coming up next. Some high school football on the way as well, as we are halfway through this 1-hour edition on this Football Friday of WKXX Live. We'll take a break and be back with more here in just a minute. We have got college football this weekend, week 0, Jacksonville State in action. You'll hear that one right here on WKXX tomorrow, 1:30 pregame show, 2:30 kick. But next week, we'll have quite a few more teams in action, including Alabama and Auburn. We're going to hit on the Tide and the Tigers right now. We'll start with Alabama. You're in the final stages of fall camp. You're game prepping now for, in Alabama's case, Utah State next Saturday. And, Nick Saban's been talking a lot and talking a lot about the second units and how they're stepping up. And, you got a healthy running back room if you're Alabama with adding some guys to it. So, he's been really, I think, upfront about the situation there.
Yeah, after the first scrimmage, he talked a little bit about how that second unit was inconsistent. It looks like the second scrimmage they really picked it up a little bit. The receivers have done the same thing. I think they're getting a little bit more comfortable on who they'll roll out there. The secondary, from a corner perspective, we heard this from Coach yesterday. There's still healthy competition out there. The key word is being healthy. Meanwhile, from the safety perspective, they got a couple of main starters back there. But I think most Alabama fans, and probably the coaches as well, they're the most pleased about the running backs because last year, it was bare bones. They were using linebackers at one point. I think Demoy Kennedy at one point was a linebacker getting reps at running back. This year, you got the transfer in and Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech, but you also have a healthy Trey Sanders, a healthy Roydell Williams, a healthy Jace McClellan. To me, I think this is a running back room, a running back unit that, number one, is healthy, but secondly, I think it's a little bit interesting because in most years you kind of have two different kinds of running backs. You think about the days where you had whether it's an Eddie Lacy who was kind of a bruiser, and you had a Trent Richardson who could bruise you. Then you had a Najee Harris last year who caught the ball really well out of the backfield, slender kind of guy. All the running backs this year are all about the same. When you look at their height, weight, they're almost carbon copies of one another. All about 5'10", all in the area of 205 to 210 pounds. Bruisers that can beat you out of the backfield, that are good in pass protection. You don't have to take one guy out because he can't block very well. Yeah. They're all good at similar things. So I think the way that the Tide will handle that running back position this year, they're in a much, much better place than they were last year.
This is Alabama running back Jace McClellan talking about that running back room for the Tide.
We all can carry that attribute, that's something that our coach talks to us about being big backs, even though that our size doesn't say it for ourselves, though we play like it.
Piggybacking off that, just what's it like being a part of a deep running back room with so many options?
It's about competition every day. We're all the same about being. If you want to be a great running back room, we all got to work together, pushing ourselves every day in practice. That's what we do.
How would you say that your game kind of complements Jahmyr Gibbs' game, and how do you guys kind of work together?
We both. I see ourselves as both great receiving backs. We can run through the whole. I see ourselves as he's at speed, as they say, we're going to add power. We both work together as good complementary backs.
That was running back Jace McClellan there on the running back room. Another Alabama player, just kind of gave us a little glimpse into to fall camp. Let's see what Brian Branch has to say about the Crimson Tide's fall camp.
Working at cornerback was good. I learned some press techniques that will help me in the future, I believe, and just really going between corner and star, the different, like I said, techniques can be very useful to me. I feel like so. I just learned in different plays too how to work at corner. I feel like the previous years I was more result oriented and I didn't focus on little things. So I tried my best to really hold on, focus on the little details, and I think that's going to make me a better player.
Overall, what do you think is the potential of this year's defense? There's been a little bit of hype for that, but do you buy into that? Do you think you guys can be a special group?
Yes, sir. The sky's the limit for us. I just feel like as long as each and every last one of us do our job day in, day out, and focus on the little things, I think we'll be one tough defense.
We talked about the defense yesterday, and there's a lot of people talk about Will Anderson, Henry To'oTo'o, Dallas Turner. Brian Branch, another one of those guys on the corner that I think could be a big name for the Tide this year.
I think so too. They're looking for not only talent, but also guys that can help them both, on and off the field. And I think that he's definitely one of those guys. He also, in that same press conference, spoke really highly of Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I think Kool-Aid is another guy that both from the defensive perspective as well as the special teams can really give them a boost as well. So I think Bama has to be feeling pretty good about their secondary in case somebody gets hurt. Obviously, that happened last year. And at the same time, the talent back there, it's just now finding the right guys. And I said this yesterday that Coach Saban, I don't think he sounds disappointed in what's going on back there. They just want to find the best four.
Moving over to the Auburn Tigers now. Still some questions on Auburn. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is it going to be TJ Finley? Is it going to be Zach Calzada? Is Robbie Ashford going to jump in there into the mix as well? But I think a question to go along with that, and a very important question, is what's going to happen at wide receiver? Who's going to step up at wide receiver that quarterback, whoever it is going to be able to throw to?
Yeah, there's so many different players. Shedrick Jackson, the Hoover product, he's up there. But there's a lot of different guys, I think, that they're of the same kind of caliber, but they haven't necessarily exploded on the scene. So I think it'll take a couple of games in order for us to find out who that main guy is, kind of the wide receiver one, so to speak, the go-to guy. Auburn's usually always had one of these guys, whether it's Sammy Coates or Duke Johnson once for a season. Seth Williams, before that, you had that one guy that you could go to. I think right now, if you're looking for that one go-to guy, it's probably Schechner, the tight end. But they want a guy on the outside the numbers that can really hurt you.
Javarius Johnson entered the transfer portal, wide receiver at Auburn. He then exited the transfer portal, which I think is really good news for Auburn, that they're going to have him back out there.
Yeah, so do I, because if you're going to have so much transition at a position, you don't want it to be the position that needs to be like in sync with your quarterback and potentially your number one guy. And it looked like Johnson was on his way out. And whatever the Auburn coaches did to convince him to stay in, they were able to do so. There were rumors in the offseason that Tank Bigsby was thinking about leaving too. He was able to come back. So the pitch from the Auburn staff seems to be working with the guys that maybe have one foot out the door, and they end up getting to come back and maybe it's playing time situation, maybe it's the targets. There's a lot of different factors I think that these guys come to realize, and then they are convinced to stick around.
Javarius Johnson shared why he returned to Auburn. Let's listen into that.
I decided to come back. It was more so like getting back into it because I've been out for a while with the team. So getting back with building a relationship with the team, getting back stronger because I've been out of the weight room for a while. So it's been more so just trying to get my body right and get ready to come back and be like physically and mentally with the team. My decision, I'm here for Harsin and stand by Harsin. So, I like him. I think he's a really great coach. So ultimately, him and the players on the team helped me make my decision to stay. It was just, I had like a hard time going on, and it was just like a decision that I made with my family. And then I took some time off and then thought about it and realized like this is where I wanted to be. I've been here going on to my fourth year now, the connection I have with each player on the team. So that was like the biggest thing too for me, was just not like leaving my boys because, I've been here for a while and I made connections with them. So
that was Javarius Johnson, Auburn wide receiver, on why he ended up staying there at Auburn, which I think is going to be big for the Tigers to have him back. And Auburn gets underway next Saturday against Mercer there on the Plains. We are going to jump to a break here. We've got a little time left to talk a little high school football. Get you ready for that coming up tonight. We'll have our review and preview. We'll review what the week was and preview what's to come this weekend. We'll do that on the other side here on this Friday afternoon. Welcome back in on this Football Friday, WKXX Live. Chase and Gerhard here with you on this 1 hour edition of the show here on Friday. So get out of here a little bit early because we've got all kinds of great programming coming your way. We got the press box coming up from 3 to 5. We got game night at 5:30. As Jeff Allen and Jeff Milwee will set the stage for all of the high school action tonight. And then we'll have high school football scoreboard show coming up from 9 to midnight tonight here on WKXX. Got the college kickoff show coming up tomorrow morning from 9 to 10. Got the Monday night quarterback show coming up Monday at 6. All kinds of great local programming on the way for you for high school and college football. I want to talk some high school football now. We had our first game last night with Oaks Bluff. Falling to Southside 42-7. You were at the game as well last night, Gerhard. It was one of those games. I don't think the score 42-7 really shows what the game was like. I mean, it was 14-7 through most of the third quarter, and some mistakes by Oaks Bluff and Southside capitalized on those. But the 42-7 does not indicate what the game was like at all.
Not even a little bit. That the game especially for most of the first half, Oaks Bluff spent a lot of time in the red zone, or maybe inside the 40-yard line, Southside's 40-yard line. Just couldn't finish those drives with touchdowns, and then the wheels kind of fell off on special teams late in the game, and then on defense as well. But that's expected of a young team. So it's not a situation where you think 42-7, you just think one offense dominated another team's defense, and that really was not the case here. And so we have in my opinion, a really interesting dynamic brewing with both these teams as they move forward. I do think Oaks Bluff will grow as the season continues to roll along. And a Southside team that got a good win, so their confidence is in a really good place, but they enter a really tough part of their schedule moving forward. And so I think it'll be interesting to follow both teams. But you're right, that the 42-7 is not indicative of the score. And
I think depth became an issue. I mean, with a team like Oaks Bluff, a lot of guys playing both ways. Humidity, there's quite a few cramps. And then on the other side, lots of penalties. And I know we get that a lot early on in the season, kind of some mental mistakes, but a lot of penalties in that game.
Yeah, and you would expect that from an early game from a team playing its first team, and Oaks Bluff was playing their first game. Southside playing their second game. You see a lot of penalties, usually early on, a lot of turnovers, usually early on in the season. Those things get cleaned up. The good thing for Oaks Bluff, after a 42-7 game, you can just point back to a couple of plays, and those plays make it to where it's a competitive game, whether it's plays that you had made a mistake on or plays that you gave up something. So, to me, in my opinion, like these mistakes that Oaks Bluff had last night are very fixable. And to me, Southside getting a good win, nice taste in their mouth. But I'm sure their coaches are telling them the exact same thing. Hey, guys, we did not play the first half very well. And then we were able to capitalize on some mistakes later in the game and not letting them think, hey, we just went out and blew a team out, even though the score might say that we did. So I think both coaches have a lot to talk to their teams about from a positive perspective as they move on into Game 3 in Southside's case, in Game 2 in Oaks Bluff's case.
Yes, so 42-7 Southside takes down Oaks Bluff. A couple of other scores from last night. Southeastern defeated Raglan 40-20. Parker, in Class 6A, beat number 3 Ramsey 34-18. Then BC Rain got a win over number 2 Viger there in 5A 20-7. Number 4 Leroy defeated number 2 Clark County. Leroy number 4 in 1A, Clark County number 2 in 2A. Leroy won that game 13-0, and then Carver Montgomery defeated Daphne 27-14. So a couple of surprising games, surprising scores there in South Alabama.
Most certainly. You think about Viger, a team that won the 4A state championship game last year. They dominated that game as well against Aniana, moving into 5A, and all the pollsters gave them a lot of love, moved them all the way up to number 2. BC Rain, a good traditional program, following on some hard times here lately, ended up getting that win there. And defending 2A champion Clark County didn't score a point in their matchup against 1A Leroy. I know there's two teams down south that really go hard after it. Raglan suffering their loss as well, that the 40-20 loss, as you mentioned, to Southeastern. And Ramsey also going down. It's not necessarily that they went down. Parker's a really good football team, but I mean, to score 18 points only and to lose 34-18 to a good Parker team, like I said. But Ramsey, one of the teams that I think a lot of people thought that they could vie for a 5A state championship. Not that they can't, but a surprising result last night.
Sure, and lots of games week 1 tonight. What's a couple of games you're looking forward to tonight, Gerhard?
I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'll be at. I won't be at this game. I'll be in the county. I'll be at the White Plains game. But one of the games I'm looking forward to in Calhoun County is the Jacksonville-Alexandria game. I think that's going to be a really interesting game. Two teams in the top 5 of their respective polls. Alexandria number 5 and the Jacksonville Golden Eagles number 4 in Class 4A. I think Alexandria, number 1, a lot of question marks coming into the season for Coach Todd Ginn's team, but he is such a good coach to be able to shape where his athletes need to be in order to make the best of what they have as far as from a talent perspective. And then Jacksonville looked really good last week against Boaz. Can they come out again and look strong again? They have a good offensive line, and they have a really good quarterback, some good weapons on the outside. That'll be interesting to watch. Can Donahoe make it 2 in a row over a Calhoun County school? Last week, knocked off Weaver, comeback fashion. Today, they play Pleasant Valley. We talked to Al Muskowitz a little bit earlier in this week. That's never happened in Donahoe's history, beating 2 Calhoun County teams in the same year.
Wow.
It should be really interesting to see if they can get that done. So a couple of games there in the Calhoun County area kind of have my eye.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the final score of this Glencoe-Weaver game.
Glencoe,
I think, is heading in a totally different direction under Scott Martin. He's familiar with a lot of these Calhoun County teams as well, having been at Okeechobee in the previous years. Weaver also playing much better football. So I think this 2 teams on the rise in Glencoe and Weaver. I think that should be a really good one.
Yeah, and I want to see just the attitude that Glencoe comes out with. I remember when Lee Osment was there at Glencoe and the kind of passion that they played with. I remember when Scott Martin got to Okeechobee, the passion that they played with early on. I want to see if that reflects on how Glencoe plays now. Absolutely.
Albertville Arab should be a good one as well. You'll hear that one over on our sister station, Power 107.5 tonight, beginning at 6:30 with the pregame show. Albertville Arab kickoff at 7 again there on Power 107.5. Before we get out of here today, we got to look back at the week that was and see what's going on this weekend. So what's kind of our review of this week?
Yeah, the week that was, I mean, obviously I'll start with the breaking news from today. Allen Green and Auburn parting ways. Should be interesting to see the way the dominoes fall from there. Meanwhile, upsets in football that we just talked about. How about Albert Pujols having a really strong week this week, inching towards 700. I think 693 is where he sits right now. And a couple of basketball notes this past week. We didn't really hit him on the show. Kevin Durant deciding, after demanding a trade and demanding, or according to reports, that the coach and the general manager be fired if he were to stay. Everybody's staying on board now. So he will stay in Brooklyn. Steve Nash will continue to be the head coach. And another basketball note, Chet Holmgren. It really stinks to hear the news about him. Suffered a Liz Frank injury. He's out for the rest of the year. Good start to the rookie year as far as in the summer league, but we won't get to see it in the season.
And our preview of the weekend. What can we watch this weekend? I'm excited about this.
Yeah, this weekend will just be incredible to watch. Just overall, I mean, we kind of scrounged and found a little some baseball stuff earlier, but now we're in football season, so I'm really interested. Obviously, in college football. Stephen F. Austin against Jacksonville State. You could hear that right here. It's not necessarily a game you have to watch. You can listen to it right here with Mike Paris. I want to see the game as far as the Scenics go in Dublin, Ireland, as Northwestern and Nebraska play out there. Now, if this game were in Chicago or this game were at Nebraska, I don't know if I'd watch it, but being out there at Aviva Stadium, I think that'll be really interesting to watch. Also, in the NFL, this is the final game of the preseason, which means the starters are expected to play a whole lot more. I love to see Mac Jones, a former Alabama quarterback, going up against his old offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, as the Patriots play the Las Vegas Raiders, a game that we talked about a little bit yesterday. How about Eagles and Dolphins playing? That's another 2 Alabama quarterbacks, Tua and Jalen, facing off against one another. I think both teams are expected to have good seasons. And in baseball, it starts and ends with the Braves Cardinals. Those games, these 3 games right here, great pitching matchups, great bats everywhere. Should be really, really fun to watch.
Well, that is it for a Friday, a football Friday, 1-hour edition of WKXX Live. We got the press box coming up next. Got game night coming up at 5:30. Scoreboard from 9 to midnight. And we'll be back with you on, tomorrow morning for College Kickoff Show from 9 to 10. We'll preview the day of college football. We'll be back with you Monday from 2 to 4. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you then.